I used to believe love could smooth over anything. That was before I met Ethan. He was charming, magnetic, the kind of man who could make a room stop and stare when he walked in. I was drawn to him instantly, his confidence, his laugh, the way he said my name like it was the only word in the world. At first, it was perfect. He told me he loved how expressive I was, how my heart wore itself on my sleeve. I thought that was a compliment. But compliments can be the first crack in the foundation. It started subtly. "You're too emotional," he said one evening, brushing off tears I'd shed over a fight at work. "You overreact to everything. You feel too much." I blinked, stunned. This was a man I had trusted with my heart, and suddenly, my heart itself was a problem.
This is Revenge by Fancy Home of Betrayal, Heartbreak, and Ultimate Payback. Subscribe and join a community that knows karma never forgets.
For months, I tried to adjust. I hid my tears, swallowed my frustrations, laughed off my insecurities. I tried to fit into the mold he wanted, a calmer, quieter version of me. But the more I suppressed, the more I felt the fire inside. It wasn't dramatic at first. I began watching him closely. Every word, every tone, every subtle behavior. I noticed patterns, the way he dismissed my feelings, the way he joked about my emotional instability in front of friends, the way he subtly shifted blame onto me whenever we disagreed. I documented everything in secret texts, emails, his offhand remarks. It wasn't just about proof. It was about clarity. I wanted to see the truth, who he was, what he believed, and how I could reclaim my power. I didn't confront him yet. I stayed quiet, polite, patient. While he believed he was shaping me, I was shaping myself. I poured energy into work, friends, and passions. I started a journal, every word, every feeling, every injustice catalogued. And slowly, subtly, I began planting tiny acts of rebellion. A missing receipt here, a changed password there, subtle hints that I was not to be underestimated. He didn't notice at first. He assumed I was compliant, docile. That would be his biggest mistake. The real shift came one night when he laughed at me for crying over a lost promotion. "You're too sensitive," he said, leaning back on the sofa. "You feel everything too much. Maybe that's why no one takes you seriously." Something inside me snapped, not anger, not desperation, but clarity. He didn't want me to feel. He wanted me to shut down. He wanted me small. I smiled quietly, calm, deliberate. That night, I decided, if he thought I felt too much, I would give him something to feel, a storm he could never ignore. I began with small actions. I stopped waiting for his calls. I stopped explaining myself. I started creating boundaries. I invested in myself in ways he couldn't influence. A new apartment, a work promotion, friends who lifted me, experiences that filled my heart without his approval. And then I began my real plan. Not revenge, not chaos, lesson by experience. I cultivated confidence he had mocked. I traveled. I redecorated my apartment. I developed hobbies and passions that demanded attention and respect. Every day, he saw a woman evolving into someone untouchable. He said I was too emotional. I made him feel. At first, it was subtle, mysterious texts he couldn't decode, social media posts he couldn't interpret, hints of a life unfolding without him. He became curious, unsettled. Then I escalated. I invited him to a casual dinner at my apartment. I smiled, poured the wine, and told him I had news, big news. He leaned in, expectant. "I've been promoted," I said. "I'm leading a new project that's getting attention from the entire company." He nodded, smiling weakly. "That's great. I've also been investing in a few personal projects," I continued. "You know, things that matter to me." The color drained from his face. This was the woman he thought he controlled, the woman he mocked for feelings, asserting her own life without him. Ethan tried to brush it off. "You're overreacting," he said when I told him I had gone on a solo trip. I laughed softly. "Overreacting? You called me too emotional for crying over your lack of respect. And now, I'm showing you what it's like to feel left behind." He blinked. The realization hit slowly. He had underestimated the power of someone who felt everything deeply and then learned to channel it. The months that followed were a careful dance. I didn't seek him, didn't beg for apologies, didn't try to explain. I focused on my life, letting him feel the consequences naturally: curiosity, confusion, a gnawing emptiness where control used to reside. I traveled internationally. I networked with powerful women. I launched a blog chronicling stories of resilience and empowerment, never mentioning him by name. My emails, posts, and photos radiated confidence and life. And he saw it. Every like, every mention, every story, he felt it without me having to say a word. He reached out months later, cautious, almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" he typed. I read it, closed my laptop, and smiled. I didn't respond immediately. I waited. When I finally replied, it was calm, poised. "I'm living. You're welcome to observe." The power dynamic had shifted completely. He had thought I was fragile. He had thought I needed his validation. Now, the only thing he could feel was the distance I had created with clarity and strength. By now, I wasn't just thriving, I was untouchable. Every aspect of my life reflected my independence and self-worth. I had rebuilt boundaries, friendships, finances, and emotional resilience. I was proof that someone could feel deeply and still stand unshaken. Ethan reached out again, nervously this time. A call. A message. Each attempt to breach my calm was met with patience and silence. Eventually, he stopped. And that's when I realized, he had finally felt the emptiness, the regret, the absence of control, but without chaos, without yelling, without manipulation. Just the natural consequences of underestimating someone too emotional to break, yet resilient enough to rise. I transformed. Not to punish him, not to make a point publicly, but to reclaim myself. I joined a professional mentorship network, shared my story, carefully edited, anonymized, and began teaching women the most important lesson: feel everything, but never let anyone dictate your emotional worth. I learned that anger is loud, but strength whispers. Confidence radiates louder than any argument. And someone who dismisses your feelings is never worth your compromise. 1 year later, Ethan reached out one last time. Subject line: "I understand now. You were right. I didn't respect your feelings. I see it now. I hope you're happy." I typed one line back. "I am." No explanations. No lingering emotions. Just peace. That night, I slept for the first time in months without overthinking, without reliving past criticisms. I realized I had not just survived, I had grown, thrived, and reclaimed my emotional power. Months turned into a year. My blog became a movement. My career expanded into leadership roles. I traveled, mentored, and thrived independently. Everywhere I went, I carried a calm, radiant confidence. People commented on my glow, my poise, my strength. And somewhere, Ethan knew. He had finally felt it, the depth of a woman who could love fiercely, feel intensely, and still walk away unbroken. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need confrontation. I gave him something far greater than fear, the awareness of what he lost, through the force of my own life. The most powerful thing I discovered: feeling too much isn't a weakness. Feeling, and then channeling that energy into growth, independence, and boundaries, is invincible power. He said I was too emotional. I proved him wrong, not with anger, not with shouting, not with chaos. I proved him wrong by living, thriving, and becoming untouchable. Peace, clarity, and self-empowerment. When someone dismisses your feelings, that's what makes them finally understand.